Well, hello again, Steve here, and today it is, as you can see from behind me, it is raining pretty good, and I decided, well, I had to use my truck anyway, so I decided to ride to and from work in my truck rather than the bicycle and test out the trusty little rain fenders, but we'll get to those eventually. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the value of hunger. And once again, this could be literal hunger or it could be sort of in a metaphorical sense. And, a lot of times hunger is involuntary and sometimes it's voluntary. I wrote about this pretty extensively in what would be generically referred to as a weight loss program. Years ago, I used to run a website that became quite popular until Google shut me down, and I wrote a book about it eventually. And on the bottom of it, I said, warning, this work has been banned by Google. And yeah, I was banned. I was censored many, many years ago off the internet from preaching this value, which helped many, many thousands of people around the world. It was called flat belly feeling. And one of the things that I encouraged people to do was not be afraid of hunger. Because hunger is, a lot of times people don't really understand hunger. They don't understand hunger from a biological sense, especially people who have overeaten for many years. A lot of times people conflate their appetite and their drives, their addictions for sugars and fats and so on as hunger. So, and that can even manifest, and I've talked about this in terms of how the body can trick us into all kinds of nonsense, which is not actually true. But hunger can be our friend. It can be voluntarily engaged in, and we can become healthier as a result because we're not intended to eat as much as we've been eating. Nor, on another sense, the opulence that we've gone through and the craziness that people have got up to with money printing and all kinds of stuff, and this idea that we cannot suffer at any cost. There's absolutely no price on human life, is what they say. So they shut down the entire economy, and meanwhile, people go crazy and go on shooting sprees and stuff like this. This sort of stuff is predictable because you're always going to have a backlash of violence when you top-down impose violence on people. So it's something to think about. Now, many years ago, not that I know a whole lot, but I just sort of related the effects of proper hunger and proper hunger in terms of, not proper hunger, but any kind of hunger that's eventually prolonged. We have a domino effect, right? It could be weight loss. It could be sort of rejigging of our lives in terms of conserving energy and what have you. And, in terms of a societal situation, I know I was talking to somebody one day, and he was wondering, like, when is it that people are going to get that this march towards socialism and everybody gets a passing grade, and everybody, no matter whether they work or not, gets a living wage and a universal income and welfare this and welfare that, and everybody's coddled and so on. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I think people got to get a lot hungrier. I mean, people won't smarten up. Like my parents, my parents were fairly old when they had me, but my dad was born basically at the turn of the last century, like during the World War I kind of thing. And my mom was born in the 1920s, and they lived through the Great Depression. I mean, these people knew what it was like to be hungry. These people knew what it was like to not have stuff. Like, during those times, my dad, with their very rudimentary cars that they had at the time, for a while, they couldn't get antifreeze. So they had to be ingenious. They used to use an early form of diesel fuel in the radiators of their cars because where they lived in northern Canada, you had to put something in there or your car block would freeze, your Model T Ford. So they used an early version of coal oil basically in there. So they adapted. They were hungry in terms of, look at them. They were all svelte. They were all quite skinny and fit, right? They weren't overeating because they didn't have much to overeat, and they had to do lots of work, and they had to be active. And this is the inner Genie program, right? They had to be active. And I think that's one of the benefits that can come from all of the troubles that we're going through right now in a world upside down, where we wake up one morning or we get home from work or whatever, if we're going to work, And all of a sudden, there's something really, really strange going on. I can tell you yesterday, like one of the things I like to do is I like to keep an eye on what are certain markets doing, what are people doing. I just look at headlines. I follow certain people who are. So I opened up my one of my subscriptions, and these people were talking about oil being sub-zero. So I'll go check. Like one of my things that I would check on once in a while, there's the NASDAQ thing. So I opened it up and it said 37 point something, and I said, what are they talking about? That's pretty high. Like this is what is a new bull run in oil or what? Because I thought yesterday it was like 19 US. I'm talking US dollars. That's how it's printed, right? But then I noticed a little dash in front of it. And I said, hang on a second here, what's that dash? Turns out futures contracts never happened before in the history of oil, as far as I know, was at negative $37. So if you had a contract to take delivery of oil next month, typically people would buy them hoping that they could hedge and that they would, because if oil goes up, then you get it locked in at, $25, let's say. Let's say you want to lock in your oil for your supply of your equipment for next month. You want to take, 10,000 drums of oil or something like that. Well, you lock it in at $25. So if it goes to $35, you still get to pay it at that. If it goes to $20, okay, you lost some, you can still buy it and so on. But these were dropping and dropping and dropping to the point where people were holding on to these contracts. They didn't want them anymore, so they put them for sale, and there's no takers. To the point where you'd have to pay somebody $40 a drum to take your contract. Or else, the tanker's going to show up and say, where do I put this oil next month? And talk about upside down. We always thought of, oh my God. I remember years ago when oil was at $150 a barrel. I remember telling my brother, because I've been a student of history and so on. I said, well, with my projections, looking at the history of it, when it gone up this much, it's going to come down this much, and we're going to see $60 a barrel oil. He said, never again. You're never going to see, we got peak oil now, blah, blah, blah. You're never going to see $60 oil. Well, within about a year, it was $60. The following year, it was $30. And it's never really gone much above 75 since, has it? But who would have thought zero oil, never mind negative interest rates, $0 for oil, negative 40 for oil. Now that's not the price of immediate oil. I mean, we're paying still over $1 a liter for gasoline here. If you can believe it, it's largely taxes and it hasn't worked its way through. But I mean, that is a world upside down, isn't it? So what next? I mean, is there currency crisis? Is there all these sorts of things? Bottom line is people have not gotten hungry yet, to the point where people are not standing up for their own freedoms, and you have all these Karens out there, shaming people on Facebook and stuff like that for standing 4 feet away from somebody rather than 6 feet away from somebody. You have all of these people who are basically got nothing else to complain about, it seems like, and they're not hungry yet. Because once people are hungry, they're going to give a shit about all these government dictates and so on, and they're going to start acting from where? From themselves in the interest of their families, right? Which is along the lines of the inner Genie program, right? Because inner Genie is the inner essence of ourselves. So if we can come from globalism to nationalism, that's closer to us, right? To community, that's closer to us. To groups of family and friends, that's closer to us. Back to the nuclear family, that's us. Back to the essence of the individual, and then go deeper still into what it is that we're made from, right? What it is what is our life force? Our life force wants to keep living. And once we're hungry, there's definitely a domino effect in the direction of life. It's like the old Maslow's laws, right? When you've got everything, all your creature comforts taken care of, you got time to start complaining and planning this and planning that and so on and living the good life. But when you don't have that anymore, you go back to a more rudimentary, fundamental, you come back to the individual, which is the building block of any society. And I believe very strongly in the continuum of what I've been talking about for years, this continuum of advancement, which is that we have evolved over years, physically, mentally, socially, religiously, politically, and so on. and in terms of freedom. And we've gone in the direction of greater and greater and greater freedoms. We see those being stripped away right now. But those stripping away of freedoms can be seen as an exercise to strengthen. I forget who it was I was listening to recently. It was talking about, this is the Freedom Olympics, man. Like, those of us who've been on that trajectory for many, many years, calling for more freedom. Freedom's under stress right now. There's a heavy workout load coming. This is the Freedom Olympics that we got to stand up and go for more freedom. But it comes back to the strength of integrity. Just like any athlete, what do they have to do? They got to work on themselves. They got to work on themselves day in and day out to become stronger, to face the challenge of the Olympics. That's what we have to do here at the Inner Genie Project, I would say, is it's time to work on our most important investment, which is ourselves. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. And by the way, thank you so much for the new subscribers coming in. Wow, we're up to a big 15. We're really rolling here. And I really appreciate the comments on Facebook and wherever else this ends up too. Let's keep it coming. And please, if you can, subscribe to the Inner Genie YouTube channel. That really means a lot. And comment in there, even just a thumbs up, say hi, something like that. Really appreciate it. I don't ask for anything more. I get such a joy out of meeting you people in the virtual world and hopefully one day in the real world. Steve again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.